Hello everyone, today's poem is Xiaoya, Gufeng, a Xiaoya poem from the Book of Songs. And this poem is also the first poem in the subchapter Gufeng之什, the 10 Poems of Gufeng. And this subchapter was named after this poem, Gufeng. The title Gufeng means the wind from the valley. Gufeng was normally explained as east wind, which is the wind in spring, because the wind is quite seasonal in China. In the spring, summertime is always east or southeast wind, and until the autumn time, the north wind or the northwest wind start to blow. So in the autumn and winter's time, it's always north or northwest wind. Anyhow, I have a very different view on this general explanation of Gufeng, the wind in the valley, because the wind described in this poem actually has different aspects or results. Sometimes it's positive for the creatures. It brings the power, support to the creatures, to the grass, to the trees to grow. But sometimes it just brings the death to the grass, to the tree. So it shouldn't be the wind in the spring, which is always positive and supportive to the grass, to the trees. One more word on the subchapter of Xiaoya. So we have gone through several subchapters of Xiaoya. 南有家鱼之时, 鹿鸣之时, and 鸿雁之时, and we have several poems in 劫南山之时. So apparently every subchapter has a focal point. So in the 鹿鸣之时, 南有家鱼之时, is more about the parties, dining parties, and the very good relationship between brothers or the royal families. So it's always very happy and positive things. And in the 鸿雁之时, it's more about the travelers or the soldiers in the far frontier areas. So it's about something more personal feeling. The subchapter 劫南山之时 is quite obvious, sign for the decaying country, sign for the very weak or bad king. So it's all about blaming poems, very likely wrote in a chaos time in the end of West Zhou dynasty. And this subchapter we have today, 谷风之时, the wind from valley, the wind in valley. So from the title we can feel it's something about normal life, the peaceful life. And yes, it is. And let's see how about the first poem. 习习谷风, 微风急雨, the slow, endless wind from the valley. It brings the wind and rain to us. 将恐将惧, 惟余于如, with the horror, with the fear with us. You and me are together. So, which means we are together facing the horror and fear. 将安将乐, 如转气余. With the peaceful time, with the happy time, you turn around and abandon me. So let's review the whole paragraph, the first paragraph, together. So the first sentence is the writing technique, writing something around the scenic views or something, and use that could be a metaphor, could be something comparative to the subject of this poem. So the wind of valley is the major cause of the changeovers, the feng, the wind, and the rains, which normally means the changeover. So when it says changeover, the ancient Chinese are very cautious and careful. So that's also the reason this changeover could bring the horror and the fears, and it also could bring the peaceful life. It also could bring the happy time to the people as well. If the wind brings the rains and grows the crops, they have a very good harvest. Of course, it will be a very happy time. If the wind destroys their neighborhood, it could be a disaster. They should be very cautious. So basically, that's also rooted in the very fundamental philosophy of the Asian Chinese. The people, all the creatures are subsidiaries of the heaven and earth. So whenever the heaven and earth they have something, like the wind is by the heaven, right? The rain is by the heaven, right? The earthquake, the hurricane, the flood, they are all the disasters to human. As a human being, we cannot do much to prevent to those huge disasters, but we could get prepared to make those damage as less as we could, and most importantly, we could stand by each other. We should support each other. So as such, we can make the best result from the disasters. So the first paragraph actually gave us a very clear picture. This poem is about two persons, Yu, Ru. So the character Ru, Nu here is read as Ru is a long word, which means you. So Yu is me, I. So you and I. So the whole poem is about you and I, the relationship between these two guys. So it gave us two scenarios. When the time there's some disasters ahead, so the people are with great fear and horror, and you and I, we are together. We take this disaster. We are facing this disaster together. And when the time changes, another time, so people lead a very peaceful life, a very happy life, and that guy just abandoned this guy. You just abandoned me. 如转弃于. So this is the first paragraph. Basically, the second, third paragraph is all repeating this meaning. Let's see how this poem goes on. 习习古风，微风急推, the mild and endless wind from the valley. It brings wind and flood to us. So the general explanation of the character Tui is hurricane, the big wind. But I don't think that's the way, because the very original character of Tui indicates it's quite related with the water, and the water is rushing down. So That's also a very, very normal situation in this area. In the summertime, when it's a big rain, very easily the flood will be formed and rush down from the valley to the lower land, which is a very populated area for the Zhou people. That's the farmland of the Zhou people. So this is also the why of the danger. The wind blows and the flood coming down. 将恐将惧，至于于怀. So with the horror, with the fear, you embraced me in your arm. 至, so which means put something somewhere. 怀, the embrace. So here actually it's quite similar, but it's more advanced situation to the first paragraph. In the first paragraph, the two people, they stand by each other. And in the second paragraph, it shows they have a very, very intimate relationship. They are embracing each other. No matter it's a male to female or it's a two male affair, they are very, very close, very, very good buddies. Okay, the next sentence. 将安将乐，气于如仪. So when we're at the very peaceful time, when we're at a very happy time, you just abandoned me as something you forgot. So this is quite like the first paragraph. 余转气于, you turn around and you abandon me. And in the second paragraph, 余气于如仪, you abandon me just like you forgot me. 仪 is forgot something. Okay, the third paragraph. 习习谷风，惟山崔嵬. The mild and slow wind from the valley, it's from the peak of that mountain. So just imagine what mountain it is. It's the South Mountain. The height is around 3,000 meters above sea level. So it's a very, very huge mountains. 无草不死，无木不萎. So when the wind blows, not a grass that don't died, which means all the grass died. Not a wood don't dry up. Dry up, it also means it's almost dying or died. So here it could be has two possibility or two explanations, because in the first pair of sentence, 惟山崔嵬, the peak of that mountain, so very likely it refers to the grass and the woods on the peak of that mountain. So you can imagine a huge mountain with 3,000 meters above sea level. There's nothing could grow on that height. So that's quite a natural thing. Or it also could be explained with another situation. So in very few occasions, the weather is very bad. There's no rain. And the wind from the valley normally is very mild and very humid, and it's very good for the crops to grow. And in a very, very bad season, even the wind from the valley is very dry, and it's dry up all the grass and the crops and the woods on the plain, on the fertile farmland of the Zhou people. So very likely they won't have a harvest in the autumn time. So that would be a very, very bad year. If 2 or 3 consecutive years happens this situation, there will be famine, there will be hungry, people will be dying by the hunger. Okay, the last sentence. 忘我大德，思我小怨. You just forgot how big the favor I have done to you. And you just think about the little complaint I made to you. So still about two guys, you and I. So the things I is the poet, so we know he should be a Zhou people, a noble people, and who are the people he's blaming to or he's complaining to? That's the puzzle this poem left to us. So there's one saying that this poem is a blaming to one of the king, very probably the last king of the West Zhou dynasty, or this is between two friends. So they are both noble persons between two friends, and the third saying is between abandoned wife to his ex-husband. In Bei Wind, there is also a poem with same title, Gufeng, and the subject is quite similar. Is telling the stories between two people. They used to be very in a very good relationship, and finally they became sort of the enemies, just like this poem. And I do think this poem was a follower to the poem in Bei Wind. In general speaking, this poem was considered as a story between two men, rather an abandoned wife with her ex-husband. And the poem in Bei Wind normally was considered as a poem by the abandoned wife. Anyhow, I still have a very different view on that poem, because in many places in the Bei Wind, Gufeng, it shows that the poet has a very big responsibility for the people under him. Normally, that person shouldn't be a female person. He should be a lord or something. So, with my own opinion, these two poems with the same title, Gufeng, are all about the brotherhood, about the story or relationship between two men. And in the history, through the history, because the poem in Bei Wind was normally considered as a poem by a woman, by an abandoned wife. So the title, Gufeng, the wind from the valley, has a very strong implication of a woman, an abandoned woman. And so whenever you saw the Gufeng was explained that way, it's still okay, because it doesn't matter it's right or wrong, it's the tradition. So when we read the poems in the Book of Songs, of course we should try to our best to find out what really the poet wants to express, the real meaning of this poem. Anyhow, we should also take care of the explanation made through the history, because those explanations in the Han Dynasty, in the Song Dynasty, also became the assets, part of the assets of the poems in the Book of Songs, and that's also a tradition to the Chinese literature. Okay, that's for today, and that's for this simple poem. Bye-bye.